Howdy folks, I keep ranting and raving about 3D printers and how important they are in anybody's workshop these days, and one of the things you're going to need is digital calipers, by the way. Yeah, big tip there, but make sure you get some because that's what these things are all about. They're precise. There was some software I talked about last week which is kind of exciting. It's called Plasticity, whatever. And it's really interesting drawing software that's more artsy, but it's for CAD or drawing up things such as even these little pieces here and then producing them on a 3D printer, and it is amazing. But I wanted to do a review on it right now and also some questions and answers to the Plasticity, because I have been spending the last few weeks on it just trying to get into Plasticity, and it's really been, first week was pretty frustrating, but I'm getting the flow of it now. Yeah, and I want to take a good hard look at it because it will really help you to design and manufacture parts from 3D printers. Yes! Yeah, so I wanted to take a little bit longer look at Plasticity, the CAD software for drawing stuff up for 3D printing, because it's so new, and I mentioned it the other week, and it was kind of like, I'm starting to get into it. This is the website here, and that's just the website page introducing you to the idea of using this different CAD software. Now, there is one thing that they did say. It's more for the art kind of people, and I really didn't gather up like what's the difference between that and me using 360, Fusion 360 and drawing something up. Well, it's got a great price because for $149 you own it, so that was really cool. It's an interesting piece of software, but is it any good? Well, it's only as good as the person using it, right? And then I spent about a week frustrated with it and wasn't able to really get anything out of it that I wanted. And then I went back to it and said, okay, we'll spend another week and put time aside, and I'll sit here and draw out some project stuff that I need done and see if can this software do it. And I actually will have to admit, I kind of like the software more than Fusion 360, and that surprised me because I'd heard that, but I thought, Fusion 360, that's the beast. Like, that is a really good piece of drawing, software for making stuff. So let's take a look at another thing too with Plasticity is really like the grid. When you lock the grid to, and I use metric for my drawings. I just because it's so easy with 3D printers, it's a no-brainer. Just use metric and don't try and mess around with subtracting 3/8 from 5/16 and 11/3. Oh no. It's just so much easier with the metric side of it. And so when I set my grid up, I dialed it in so that the grid is 1 millimeter squares. That way I can actually count the squares off on the grid and put the lines, the holes, whatever it is I need, I can put that on my drawing as I sketch it out. And I found that to work really well. Once you got used to the how it works or functions kind of thing. And it only took a couple of weeks to start to get over it. It's like, what, this is starting to look like a pretty interesting piece of software. Now, there's a couple of things that I ran into that were kind of angering, that was kind of like, what, you shouldn't be doing this because it sort of upsets the customer, and you're trying to get a new client in after a 30-day trial and sell them on buying the software. And there's a couple things. And the very first thing that struck me was I went to try to export an STL file to a 3D printer and see if I could print something, and it glitched. It created glitches, which told me right away, okay, I've already understand that with a 30-day free trial, they limit you and they won't allow you to do everything you want. Well, that becomes kind of frustrating because then you get angry with the program because you can't finish up what you're doing. So that sort of makes me stop and say, they're almost forcing me to buy this program for $149. Otherwise, I can't produce anything, or any parts. I can't even try that part of it out and see how the part, comes out. Where I think it was it Shaper 3D? They have a free version, but what it does is it sort of botches the drawing up a little bit so that like a round circle has it's almost scalloped kind of thing. It's not really round. So it produces really poor quality drawings at the other end until you buy the subscription fee to it, which is expensive. So I really have some hopes up for this software that it will continue to upgrade and increase and get more powerful and offer more features. It does really well. I'm impressed. I have to admit, I had heard others were saying, you know what, I'm dropping Fusion 360 to go to this because I like it more, you know. And as I started to work with it, I suddenly realized, you know, I sort of do like it more. It is, you know, a really good, strong program on its own. It has some limitations. One of them was making holes and punching a hole with a certain size or counterbore and stuff, angles and stuff. Found that to be kind of problematic, and it doesn't work like, you know, Fusion 360, so therefore, you know, I have a problem. So I had to figure a way out. Okay, I have to make a circle, I have to do this, I have to do that in order to make it work. But overall, the impression right now is it's probably the best CAD software for the price I've seen to date on the market. So since last year when it came out, it has gone from 1.0 to, I think it's 1.41 or something version right now, and they are updating it, making it better. So that's a really good thing to hear, because it's nice to see that they're bringing that software up to the point where it's going to really work well. But back to the grid thing. The grid for me is way better the way it works and the way you can see it and establish your parts on it, as opposed to Fusion 360. So that was the very first marker that was like, okay, I've always been frustrated with Fusion 360 over their the background grid. It's kind of vague looking, and I have a lot of problems with it because if you zoom in too much, it actually changes the scale of the squares, and I can't do that because I'm trying to work within a certain scale, metric in this case, with like 1 millimeter squares or something, and all of a sudden it breaks it down into something else like 10 millimeters per square or something when you're zooming in and out. And it's like, I can't have that. You know, I have got to be able to stay with the grid so that when I check my stuff, I can measure it out. But, you know, it just makes sense, right? So there was that. The next thing it did was I was doing some sort of sophisticated splines where I was creating an arc curve, and was really surprised. Again, with the grid in Plasticity, I was able to see it well enough to put it, and it automatically showed me where my center was to my part that I was making, and it was like, okay, Fusion 360 doesn't do that for me. It just lets me figure out where I'm going to drop that thing. So I thought that was kind of cool, because it's helpful in initiating centers where you want to find a center on something, and that's where you want that point or that circle, whatever to be for a hole, per se. It centers it up and says, yeah, that's center there. Oh, okay, great. You know what? Then that's where we want that part. So there was some pretty cool things. Dimensionally, I don't like the way they work their dimensions, but at the same time, once you punch a dimension in, you're kind of like, it feels like you're kind of like constrained. You're stuck with it at that point. You can't go back to the part and say, you know what, that's not going to work. I need this, you know, 5 millimeters wider or something. Like, yeah, it's very hard to change. So you end up scrapping the whole drawing and redrawing it out and adding your numbers up. So that part of it, I'm sure down the road they'll figure out a way to get that established into their programming or something for updates. Who knows? But it's just that it was an easier program to use in some ways than Fusion 360. But what I really liked was the export side of it. Now that's where it was really good, but it was like really bad. It'll export in STL file, which if you're a 3D printer guy, I was like, yeah, that's what I need, is that file, so I can send that to a slicer and get that ready to print. And the problem was when I went over to do that, it messes up, and the slicer wouldn't allow me to print the part. And it was like, okay, it's because I have the free version, the 30-day thing. So that kind of upset me that it did that, and that they were holding me back kind of thing from not printing it. And I thought, that's not a really good marketing idea. I don't like it. You know, it sort of makes you angry with the program, so then you don't want to buy the program. You know, it's like, yeah, that's the way I'm seeing it anyways. I'm just giving it to you from my aspect, right? From my end of it. Let's take a look at, let's take a look at a drawing that I have on there right now that I'm working with, and just show you something I'm working with, and you know how it's coming. It's actually, the part so far is better than what I had on Fusion 360, and that to me is kind of like, that's pushing me towards, you know, spending $149 and buying this program, because I can use it so well, and I can draw up the parts I need when I need to draw them up. Yeah. So what brought all this on? Well, I lost internet for about 24 hours here at the house, and I went over to the office, and it was like, okay, I can't use the internet. So it's like, you almost feel like your computer's a piece of junk if you don't have internet. But I had the trial version of this Plasticity in there. So I opened it up and thought, well, it'll run without the internet. And that was another thing about it. It was better than anybody else's. Is like, you don't need a subscription fee, and you buy the software, and now it's like, I don't need the internet. I can sit here and draft, design, and even print something without internet. Wow, that's pretty darn cool. Now that brings us to the last, and really the part that's judgmental over the Plasticity program. It says if you buy it, that it will open up all the features, it'll open up all the gadgets and stuff. So in other words, if you have the 30-day trial, like I have right now, you're not seeing everything that the program offers or it can do. And again, I think that's not very good marketing in some ways, because if I could see all the features of everything I can get to, and is this going to do everything I need to do, then I can honestly say that I'm willing to buy it, and pay for it and get on that. So I guess in the next few weeks, we'll see how that goes, and then I'll report back to you and let you know how I'm doing with it, because I'm not going to get into stuff like Tinkercad. I've tried Tinkercad, it's too primitive. Fusion 360, I really like it, but that subscription fee is just killing me. And the Shaper 3D, same thing, just killing me. SketchUp, any of these CAD programs, you have to buy these subscription fees, and they're just too high. From a business aspect, they're taking too big a bite out of a very small amount of profit that can be made from, say, Fusion, from drawing up 3D printing. So that's something to look forward to. That we'll see how it goes. We've got a lot of tools and stuff coming in, but nothing here right now. I think they're all on that cargo ship that hit the bridge in Baltimore. I'm pretty sure that's where they're all held up. Nothing has shown for weeks. Anyway, I'm out of here. Over and out.